Welcome to Frontline Dispatches on Organizing Upgrade, a show dedicated to spotlighting the most urgent organizing and activism happening around the country and beyond for racial and economic justice and much more. Stay tuned for future episodes every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and 4 p.m. Pacific. My name is Diana Robinson. I'll be your host today. Today we'll hear from Armando Jimenez, a lead organizer at Make the Road, Pennsylvania. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, please leave comments or chats. We'll be monitoring them throughout the show. And if you haven't yet, give Organizing Upgrade a like on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and finally, to stay up to speed with all the amazing content coming out of Organizing Upgrade, sign up at our website to hear about upcoming events, videos, articles about left strategy for organizers. Okay, let's get into it. Welcome, Armando. Many have felt that with the Biden administration, we would be on a path to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented people here in the US. However, we continue to see detentions, family separation, and deportations. And we know that detention centers are a big profit makers, and that often cities and where they're housed look to them for job creation and for revenue for those cities. And currently, there are 3 family detention centers in the United States. One is in South Texas. One was currently in Berks County, and we'll get more into that. And then one in Karn City, Texas. And according to the Detention Center Watch, there can be up to 500,000 immigrants a year held at these detention facilities. So Make the Road Pennsylvania has been part of the Shutdown Berks campaign and was successful in getting families released just recently from the Berks Detention Center. So Armando, welcome again. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you here to tell us more about the Shutdown Berks campaign and just in general, the fight for the end to detention centers. Can you share with us more about the Shutdown Berks campaign and what led to the release of these families? What organizing had to happen for this to happen?
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be able to speak on this. The Shutdown Berks campaign has been since 2014, and it really started off from people hearing about a story of a woman being raped in the Berks Detention Center, and Make the Road has also done action since 2016 with the movement. So we've been. This is a long fight for human rights, and in Berks County, where Reading, one of our Make the Road community centers, is at, and it's been a fight for so many years, and we're still cautious about celebrating because we know that it's not permanent into the entire. Berks Detention Center is permanently shut down, where ICE and the DHS is no longer working with the county commissioners and the county. And there's been an effort of grassroots organizing, immigrants, law advocacy, and organizations like Make the Road and other organizations in the Shutdown Berks Coalition that have been fighting for ending family detention in Pennsylvania, and honestly, ending family detention in the whole country.
So, often an argument you hear around why these detention centers are in these cities, create jobs, that they bring revenue into the city. Can you share with us how much does the county receive from ICE to run this detention center?
Yeah, it's something really interesting about the Berks Detention Center. It's the only one that's publicly owned. So that argument, we hear it all the time. It's right around $1 million between what they give the county and the paid staff. So it's a lot of money that we're talking about. But yeah, we're saying that that's blood money. People have died in detention centers. Kids have died in detention centers. A woman was raped in Berks Detention Center, so we think it's a real disgrace that the county feels like they should take that money because of jobs, right? It's not right to be able to go to work knowing that people can't leave out of their free will.
Yeah, Armando, you make a really good point about the tensions that exist around this, right? around people saying that this is job creation, but what kind of environment are we creating where we're detaining people and families and putting them in conditions that are harmful? For those who are just joining us, we're interviewing Armando Jimenez from Make the Road, Pennsylvania. He's a lead organizer there. And we're talking about immigration detention centers, and specific about the Berks County Detention Center and the campaign to get it shut down. As a reminder, if you have questions, please put them in the chat or in the comments, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the show. So please feel free to add those questions and comments. So following up on that, Armando, recently families were released from the detention center. How many families were released from the detention center, and for how long had they been detained at this facility?
Yeah, it was around 7 to 8 families who were being held there, and they range from like 1 month to several months. And it really was a surprise even to them that flights had to be arranged from California and New England to be able to have family, for them to join with family. But the exact number of how long they were there, honestly, I'm not too sure, but I could share that just March of this year, a 3-year-old baby was released with their dad, and they were there for 10 months. So that was just March of this year, and the baby actually spent their birthday in this detention center, and that's pretty common actually for them to spend their birthdays being locked up with their family. And yeah, it ranges from up to 700 days people have been locked up in Berks Detention Center.
Wow, that's just so disheartening to hear that children being held in jails. For so long there was, or we had been hearing the outrage of the Trump administration that they were keeping children locked up in cages. But we know this practice didn't start with the Trump administration, and that the detention of family and immigrants has been a practice that's been happening for many years, really revving up in the 90s. So, you talked a little bit already about this, but some of the conditions that people were living in this facility, you talked about someone being sexually assaulted. Can you talk more about the horrible conditions in which people were living in these detention centers, in this detention center in particular?
Yeah, they're well documented. I could list some right now, but I think, they try to play it off as it's a residential center, and they provide education for the children and all these other things. But basically, it's trying to do incarceration light. So every time we do a complaint, they supposedly like make it better. But what we're saying is that any kind of incarceration, any kind of detention is already inhumane. Children experience mental health problems as a result of just being there for a couple hours or days. So, just being locked up is it's already punishment. It's already it's illegal. And yeah, what happened with the person with the woman being raped, what happened in 2015, and the officer was convicted. So it's in public records. You could see it. In 2015, a 7-year-old is documented showing that signs of malnutrition and behavioral problems. The mother stated that it was due to prolonged captivity, and the facility psychologist actually blamed the mother for ineffective parenting skills. In 2016, a 4-year-old was diagnosed with sugarlessness. So that has to do with, I think, malnutrition. And in 2016, a 6-year-old boy was threatening their mother of committing suicide if they weren't released. And the faculty staff just refused to provide any crisis intervention. So the list goes on and on. And personally, as somebody who visited the center and spoke with a family person, that I saw the child, and I asked what can we help with, and the dad told me he would like some chicken parmesan or I forget, it was chicken nuggets. And that honestly, like, really, really like shocked me that something that we could, easily access or get, going to family, to McDonald's or something. And this is something that the child, I forget, he looked like he was 3 or 4 years old. So really, making the case that, yes, if ICE and Border Patrol are the ones who are running these centers, things are going to happen because their one job is to deport people. And any moment that they're under their custody or they're paying the county, these things are going to happen. But immigrants should not be detained under any circumstances. They're not a threat to this country, and that's just plain racism, white supremacy.
Yeah, that's just so heartbreaking, you sharing the story of a kid just wanting chicken nuggets. Like it like really enrages you, makes you angry that a child has to experience this kind of trauma. Um, you know, and you make a really good point that it is about human rights. It's bringing humanity to all these people because often they're invisible to all of us. We don't think about them. They're in these places and we don't know about it. So that's why it's so important to highlight and really bring this to people's attention. Um, the release of the families was pretty abrupt, or was pretty fast, and it seemed like it just happened out of nowhere. Um, do you have any insight or information about that? Like how this just from one day to another just happened so suddenly?
No, it was a surprise to us too. This is one of the reasons why we're actually suing the county because of they're not doing transparency with what they're doing. What they're supposed to be is informing the community, and they're actually working behind closed doors with ICE to keep holding immigrants in that detention center, and yeah, it just speaks more to the county commissioners who are not taking into account the community, and they're just doing whatever they want, right? This was as a result of years and years of advocacy by community members, by Shutdown Berks and Make the Road. And, the new administration is perhaps trying to change the language of just processing centers. So we might start seeing that more in Berks County as a result of the commissioners not listening to their constituents.
So, in thinking about, there's been the lack of transparency. There's been this lawsuit brought to the county commissioner because there's lack of transparency. But there's also discussion about the potential that this facility will continue to be a detention center, primarily for women, and that apparently more beds are being put into the facility. So can you talk a little bit more about the lawsuit and kind of what information has come out about that, they said they were releasing families. It seemed like it was being shut down, but it seems like that's not the case.
Yeah, our understanding is that it was a white paper proposal on behalf of ICE to the commissioners. We don't know if it was a verbal, written. We just don't know what it was. And the commissioners have expressed that they simply said yes. It was a letter of acceptance to this white paper proposal, and that they've gone on record in the county commissioners meetings that they simply said yes, that they're willing to continue working with ICE, that yes, they're willing to continue to incarcerate families, and that yes, they're willing to incarcerate adults. So we did this. We're a part of this lawsuit with local residents from Berks County because we believe it was a deliberate effort by the county commissioners to hide their decision making surrounding the Berks County Family Prison from the public. And we believe that ICE wants to convert it, and this is about accountability, about the county commissioners, the governor, and Biden. It's about accountability because if they think that holding women is better than holding children, we don't believe so. We don't. It goes against our values. Yeah.
So, for those who might say, so what's the alternative? How can the county recover this income if there isn't any detention center? So what's the alternative then for folks who will say that, like, we need this revenue, we need these jobs?
Yeah, we believe it shouldn't be vacant. That building should not be vacant. It should be used for something for the community. And the community has made their voices heard time and time again. They want and they really do deserves real human services that support and care for one another and not criminalize people. Um, it could be used for, like I said, health and human services, and really it should be left up to the community in Berks County. And like they have, expressed in the past that it could be used as such as a rehab center, a real rehab center, not, profiting off people should not be it. It should be really to help people. And we're against incarceration. So if it were to be a prison, we're against that because we know too many times it's Black and brown people who end up being locked up.
Yeah. And moving forward, what are the next steps in this campaign to shut down Berks? Now it's clear that the county is open to this women's detention center. They do want to continue this relationship with ICE potentially. So what are the next steps in the campaign? There's this lawsuit now, but what are some next steps in the campaign to ensure that it doesn't become a women's detention center?
Yeah, immigration it really is at the local, state, and federal level. So the way that we're working is about holding elected officials accountable. So this lawsuit is to hold to just do that with the county commissioners, is to hold them accountable for not being transparent, and we're really looking at all the way to the top level with the White House. It really is a relationship between ICE and the county, and ICE. They've done it in the past where they're founding, and what they're doing now. To say that they're rogue is not really honest. Like, this is how they operate. They do what they want, and under any president, their job is to deport people. So we're really telling President Biden to cut the contract with ICE and Berks County. So that's at the federal level. And at the state level, if really, if people really cared about funding, about, bringing those jobs to Berks County, then at the state level, we could have, a bill or some type of way of funding that center. And I don't think money is a concern. I think, if legislators did their job and found this money for Berks County, they could find it. They could have the money there, as soon as possible. So really, we're working at the local, state, and federal level about holding elected officials accountable. But we're not just shut down Berks and that's it. That's the name of the campaign, but we're really working at the federal level, national level. Sorry. We stand in solidarity with Texas, with the Currents and the other center in Texas who also hold families in detention, and we're not going to stop until we end family detention. And to think of this language around processing centers, or they're not holding them there for too long, it's only 2 or 3 days. This is a for-profit. This is for profit. Detention centers are for profit. So truly, we're working on all levels. So we need all the support we can get.
Yeah, and talking about support, to our listeners and those folks who are watching, again, a reminder, you can put your questions and comments in the chat. We'll be happy to answer questions or any comments that may come up. So please do so. But what are some ways that folks watching can support? What can we do?
Well, a Facebook account exists that's called Shutdown Berks. and they could follow the steps there to sign on and to be a part of the campaign. Also, would make the road. We have centers in Reading, Philly, and Allentown, um, and we have so many resources on how people could join the movement. If they could make calls to Biden, if they could make calls to Governor Wolf, that's one way that people can participate. Yeah, we have so much material on just share a Facebook post, Instagram, tweet. We do Twitter storms, but we need people from the west side of Pennsylvania, where it's not in Berks County, but elected officials have the power to vote for legislation. So we really need as many people from all over Pennsylvania and the entire country, because we stand in solidarity with other locations.
Yeah. And so there's so much talk about immigration reform, and I feel like we've been here before, but now it might seem more real than ever, right? There's been talk about comprehensive immigration reform since I got involved in activism. 2006, the big marches that happened. I remember that very vividly. What are your hopes around immigration reform? How do you feel about what's currently being proposed? What are your thoughts around that? There's bills for pathway to citizenship for essential workers. There's Biden's Citizenship Act bill. There's the Dream and Promise Act, and then the Farm Worker Modernization Act. There's all these different immigration reform bills. But for you and what do you feel would be the best path towards citizenship and making whole the 11 million folks in this country who are living here undocumented, but provide so much to our country?
No, yeah, I remember the 2006 marches too, and the first time I ever heard of legislation to give relief to some folks, and there was the DREAM Act in 2001. So, children have been in cages through several presidencies. So I really feel like, we can't count on politicians. We really have to be the ones who are really holding people accountable. And it's really hard to be, just hopeful. Obama spoke about hope. So politicians have spoke about hope, and to see that we constantly get crumbs. We constantly have to settle for so little, and it really speaks to this country. That capitalism and white supremacy are tied. So, that it's profitable to lock up families who are Black and brown. That it's profitable to not give citizenship for all because this fear of the other. I really can't be hopeful on politicians. I really am, don't have loyalty to any politician, but have loyalty to our communities. And I was there in 2006 when, we all came out because they were going to criminalize for just being undocumented. And I think that we got to be careful with immigration reform. We got to be careful because we know the makeup of the Senate. We need 60 votes to pass any kind of immigration reform or legislation. And we really are worried that they're going to give something up. With past presidents, they have tried to work with the other party. And as a result, we get more family detention or we get more criminalization of future undocumented folks. So we're not willing to throw other people under the bus just for DACA or TPS. We do want DACA. We do want relief for, we want victories. We just won't, be at the expense of others. We really have to think about the bigger picture of why people are leaving their countries. And, we can't have immigration reform without addressing trade agreements between the U.S. and other countries. So I think what I'm trying to say that I'm hopeful in our community. We are really powerful. For example, we were able to get DACA because we challenged a president. A president said that he could not give executive order to DACA recipients or so-called dreamers back then. So, we are powerful. So I really do have hope in our community to, force legislation or force this president to take some, action, some executive orders for relief for essential workers, for DACA recipients, and and also end family detention.
Yeah, thank you, Armando. Those words are so powerful because we know that no change is created without pressure from the people, right? We know all the movements that we've seen that led to changes has been because people were out there protesting, they were pushing the limits and bringing attention to these injustices. So we know that that's what creates change. And holding politicians accountable, that's so important, right? We help to get them elected. We help for them to be in office, but oftentimes they don't deliver on the things that they said they would do for our communities. So I think that's a great responsibility that we have as communities to hold them accountable and to make them understand that, if you don't follow through, there will be consequences, right? I think that's really important. Armando, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your perspective and sharing about the Shutdown Berks campaign and the national campaign to shut down all family detention centers. It's so important to bring attention to these issues because people feel different now. They feel complacent. Some people, right? They feel like, oh, we have this new administration. It's going to be different. But, we have to ensure that real change does happen. So we have about 2 minutes left. If there's any questions or any comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. But Armando, if you want to leave us with any final words of anything you want to share to wrap us up.
Yeah, just I want to state that any kind of detention of human beings is immoral, illegal, and it should be happening under any president. And we really have to hold them accountable and just get them out of office if they're not doing their job.
Great. Thank you, Armando. And to our viewers, as always, you can join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Make sure you like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for an email list so you can learn more about the great organizing that's happening for strategies and things like that. And this subject is something that really is close to my heart. I'm the daughter of immigrants from the Caribbean. Immigrant rights has been something that I've been passionate about for my entire career. And I'm just really happy that I was able to talk to you, Armando, and learn more about the great work that you all are doing at Make the Road Pennsylvania and with the Shutdown Berks campaign around this. And I hope that we all can take action to ensure that we end family detention and that we end detention of people in these terrible facilities. Again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.